If you were to ask any Protestant what is one thing that, when it comes to cat theology, that they would deny, you'd probably hear the Pope or the papacy isn't biblical. Sure, whatever. But another common thing that you'll probably hear Protestants say is this: oh, Jesus Christ isn't present in the Eucharist. There's no way that in a piece of bread, Jesus Christ could be present in there. And I'm like, okay, sure. But after reading this book called The Eucharist by Bishop Barron, there was one thing that he said that stood out to me, and I just had to share it. So let's go. So in the book, he referenced Jesus being born. This is crazy, by the way. He referenced Jesus being born, right? But he also specifically noted how Jesus was put in a manger. And if people don't know what a manger is, that is the place where animals eat, right? Whereas Caesar Augustus, who reigned at the time, was a guy who can get anything that he wanted in a snap of a finger. All the sensual desires, all the food in a snap of a finger. So Jesus was meant to be eaten, right? But then Bishop Barron's like, oh, Caesar Augustus is meant to be fed at the time, you know what I'm saying, as a king. But it's just crazy how Jesus came into the world as a king that was meant to be eaten, where Caesar Augustus was the opposite. Let me tell you a quick story that helped me understand the Eucharist better, as somebody who's a revert to Catholicism. So when I was younger, I went to a parish in Germantown called St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church. And I was an altar server there for many, many years, from middle school all the way up to high school, like 10th grade around. Because right before that, COVID happened and I stopped going. But as an altar server, I would hear, first of all, I would prepare the table for the altar, for the sacrifice of the Mass. And every time we would, you know what I'm saying, we would hear the priest say, "This is my body, this is my blood." And at the time, I didn't read the Bible, so I was like, okay, like, what does this mean? And I would eat it, and every time I would eat it, I remember going back home, and I would just feel a sense of peace every time. I'm like, yo, this is something, like, this has to be something. Every time I would go to Mass and come back, I would feel a sense of peace. So coming into a person who was reverting, I was deep in Protestant churches, and a lot of them was like, oh, this is just a symbol. I'm like, first of all, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible did not say, or Jesus did not say, this is a symbol of my body and the Last Supper. He said, this is my body. This is my blood. You know what I mean? There's a car going by, but... And I'm like, yo, and that was one of the things I was like, yo, I had to take this Catholic faith serious, because why would Jesus just give us a symbol of himself to eat? You know? Like, this has to be real. It's God. Why can't we just believe what God is saying? Jesus performed a miracle at the wedding of Cana where he turned water into wine. He performed a miracle where he turned all these loaves from 7 loaves to 5,000 to feed all these people. Why can't we believe him when he says that this is my body, this is my blood? You know? And then we connect that to the Passover meal that Jesus, Leviticus, you know, where it's promised that there will be a meal that will be a remembrance for the end of time, to the end of time. You know what I mean? The Passover, if you look at the Passover, right, they would smear the blood on the doors, right, of a lamb. Obviously, people, even Protestants know this, right? But they would eat the lamb. Right? Jesus already died for us. He is the lamb. Protestants know this, that he is the lamb. You know, but he gives up his life and his body for us to eat during the Mass. So why can't we just believe that? And as I mentioned previously with the manger, him being in the manger is a symbolism for us to eat him. That's what Bishop Barron's book kind of does. Oh wait, this is actually very, very iconic, because he actually, from the very first seconds of his life, wanted to give himself up. Obviously they were poor at the time, they couldn't afford, like, you know, expensive care or whatever, but just the being put in the manger is just very, I mean, oh, I never really caught that one. Like, wow, I could, if there's any Protestant watching this, like, yo, really think about that, you know what I mean? He gave himself up to be eaten. The Eucharist is for real. You know, I feel like my life is testimony. Again, like I said, just the peace that I would experience from eating the Eucharist. You know, and I know a lot of my Protestant friends, they probably ate the Eucharist before. But there's nothing like eating the Eucharist in a state of grace, first of all. In a state in which you understand, like, what you're eating, like, it's God. You know, because you can go and eat the Eucharist in a state where you're like, this is habit, or I don't even believe this is true, and eat it. And first of all, you're probably in a state of mortal sin. And second of all, you probably won't get any graces that come from it. But when you are not in a state of mortal sin, you understand what you're eating, you get significant grace from eating Eucharist. It's a different feeling, you know? I know, because I used to be a guy who ate the Eucharist all the time. And I was like, now I eat, I'm like, whoa. Like, I feel more charitable in my life. I feel like I can be more like Jesus Christ and witness Jesus Christ through my content, through other people in my life. You know, so for any Protestant watching this, really meditate or do a Lectio Divina on the manger, Jesus' manger, and like, yo, the symbolism is for real. Like, he gave himself up to be eaten. You know, so that concludes the end of my video. Nothing crazy, you know. I might not edit it too much, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully this changes and impacts your life. All right, so I'll see you guys next time. Peace.